Hello, Trombone Internet. This is Chris Van Hoff, assistant to the regional manager of the International Trombone Festival. We at the festival, of course, are huge fans of the pod, and we are really excited to invite you to attend this year's 2024 International Trombone Festival at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. Dave Begnosh is our host. We have the world premiere of a brand new double concerto for trombone and piano with the Fort Worth Symphony. We have the American Brass Quintet. We have late night jazz featuring a Latin jam session. Like, everything is happening. All the cast will be there. It's the best hang in the world, and we hope to see you there. You can register for the festival still online at www.internationaltrombonefestival.com, and it's happening the last week of May. So go register. We'll see you in Texas.
Welcome to the Trombone Retreat, a podcast of the Third Coast Trombone Retreat. Today on the podcast, we talk to Megumi Kanda, principal trombonist of the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. My name is Sebastian Vera, and I'm joined as always by the handsomest co-host I have on this podcast, Nick Schwartz. What's shaking, my man?
Not much. How are you doing?
Just fine.
I have a question for you.
I like
as an expert of giving yourself a haircut for the past 8 years because of hair retention issues.
Wow.
What do you recommend to our listeners when they go to shear their own mane?
Well, I would say that hair does still grow, so there is things that I need to maintain there. And I think you just need the right equipment. And it's actually a blessing because once you start doing it, once you keep your hair short, a lot less maintenance, way cheaper, you save a lot of money in haircuts. Life is good.
Is Edwards ever going to come out with a set of clippers since you're an Edwards artist?
I'll talk to them. Yeah. Well, if they do, it'll have a better sound than any other clipper. So just lost half our audience.
Yeah.
Jim Nova just turned it off.
It's like the Twilight series. You're either Team Edward or Team Jacob, you know?
Yeah, there's only two types of trombones. So we had an awesome talk with Megumi Kanda. It was a pleasure, honestly. It was just a lot of laughter and just really nice getting to talk to her. And she had a crazy story of just adversity and just left and right, something that would be easy to quit from, just things happening that most people would give up. And she just was determined from a very young age to just follow this dream.
Yeah, pretty amazing. I think she said she was... How old was she when she said she was like, I want to be a trombonist? It was like
sixth grade.
Yeah, really young. But one interesting thing, or among the many interesting things about this episode, is she is the first guest we have interviewed where neither one of us knew her personally.
And now we're best friends.
We are. We're going to have friendship bracelets and rings and all the things.
To your point, I think she kind of falls in this category of, I just think there's so many badass players, so many wonderful, talented players that not a lot of people may know about simply because they may not be the most active on social media or putting out recordings every day or posting every day. But there's so many really, really amazing players that, you know, we've loved to highlight at the retreat and we're going to bring on this podcast. And I just think she's one of those people. I mean, you look up her videos and it's just phenomenal playing.
Yeah. And while we both knew of her and didn't know her as previously established just a couple of minutes ago, we knew of her recordings, her CDs that she's put out, and definitely worth checking out. If you can get a hold of them, I can't remember the name of the one where she said it's only in Japan and it's really hard to get. But besides that, everyone should look up her recordings.
Lastly, before we get to the interview, we'd like to officially announce the online trombone retreat, which will be July 6th through 12th. Same kind of format as our normal retreat, but it's going to be all online. We're going to have Koichiro Yamamoto, Jeff D., David Bender, Brian Santero, Nick, and myself. It'll include daily warm-ups, masterclasses, recitals. We always have special talks on finance, performance anxiety, and mobility with experts in those fields. And we'll have our classic roundtable discussion. It's usually a fireside chat. Maybe we'll have like a fire background on our Zoom background. That's a really good idea by Taylor Fong today.
Yeah. I think the announcement, does it deserve air horn blast?
Oh no, did you cue that up? Okay. We just need the Six Flags music to come in.
Beep, beep, beep.
So lastly, the most important detail about this is it is free. Just go
Sebastian,
to our website.
hold on. How many pesos is free?
I believe 0 pesos.
What about euros?
0.
Caribbean dollars?
0.
Oh, man. That's not very much money.
Is Caribbean dollars an actual currency? That does not sound like.
Yes. I think it's actually, maybe it's East Caribbean dollars.
Yeah, good save. Okay, before I was rudely interrupted, it is free, and all you need to do is register on our website, tromboneretreat.com, with your email address, and we'll give you a password to all of these Zoom hangouts with a schedule.
By the way, it is an East Caribbean dollar. That is a thing.
Oh, did you just look it up?
No.
Oh, cool. Fact check. Hashtag fact check. Enjoy the interview.
Yeah, maybe I should hold the mic.
Yeah, it looks like official.
Yeah.
So how are you doing? How's everything going? Are you in Milwaukee right now?
Yeah, I am in Milwaukee in my basement.
Have you been there throughout the quarantine so far?
Oh, yeah, we have been staying in the house, like, we've been pretty much, staying
Homebodies.
put. Yep, totally.
How's this whole experience been for you?
It's been actually, I don't know. I mean, I really miss playing with the orchestra, like, so much. But actually, there has been some plus sides. I have been working on making a method book. And usually with the orchestra work, it gets like really busy. So I thought it was going to take like 2 years to finish it. And it only took like 3 months and I'm done.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, quarantine, So that has been like, the positive. And I guess another positive is usually like when you prepare for orchestra, when you prepare for recitals. You're so busy because you have the orchestra work and, you have to balance it out. And this has really given me the chance to prepare new pieces. So I'm like trying to fill up the bank while I have the time because I know later on I'm not going to have any time. So I'm trying to learn like as many pieces as possible. So that's another positive. It's a lot of work though, like I have 3 kids, 3 boys.
Oh boy.
And, yeah. And, like now we have to homeschool and that is so much work. And, especially when you're not good at technology and you get a ton of emails every day and that's upload your work onto the computer. It's like, wow. So that's been the challenge. And, I really miss playing with the orchestra. But another thing that has been a positive is thankfully my husband, he plays French horn in the orchestra with the Milwaukee Symphony. And all of our 3 kids, they play instruments.
Oh, wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have your own orchestra.
Yeah, we do actually. And, I think that makes it a little easier. I mean, it's kind of like a mishmash orchestra. We have a violin player, viola player, and a trombone player. So what do you do with 2 trombones, violin, viola, and a horn?
So you convinced one to play the trombone at least?
No, I did not convince him, actually. I was trying to keep him away from the trombone as much as possible. I kept telling him, like, you look like a French horn player. That's a better deal. There are more positions, less people playing it. You're going to have a better future. And then he one day said, Mom, I just really want to play the trombone. Can I please play the trombone?
What a compliment. Wants to be like Mom.
I know. And then he said, you can be my forever teacher.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, okay, fine.
At least he didn't play the euphonium.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. Euphonium is not okay.
How's that been going? Because I know it can be tricky studying with your mom. Like I took some piano lessons with my mom and it's a complicated dynamic sometimes.
It kind of is. I mean, I think it all depends on the kid. Like my mom, she played the piano. If she tried to teach me, it would have never worked. But the one that plays the trombone, he's kind of actually like a clone of me. He's like a boy version of me. So I always wanted to have a twin, and it's like I never thought I will have a twin son. So actually, we work really well together. Just because we're basically like the same person.
Wow.
Awesome.
It is really, really fun. And one of the highlights of the quarantine has been, well, all musicians, we've been stuck at home. But our mission really is to lift people's spirits up, right? So how do we do that? We have a quintet at home. So then, we would go out on the porch and we would do like a mishmash quintet concert or a brass trio concert. So
That's wonderful. I bet your neighbors love you.
Oh gosh, yeah, they really enjoy it.
I was going to say that's a funny instrumentation when
Yeah.
you think about it, because it's a lot of like alto tenor instruments and not a whole
know.
lot of bass or treble.
I know, but our violin player is like, he's got an attitude of a concert master, so he can
Oh,
take care
gosh.
of the treble by himself.
Has he asked for a sound shield?
Not yet. That's coming soon.
So you said your mom was a pianist, you said?
Yeah, she's an amateur pianist, but she was like really, really good, and she was a church pianist since
Oh,
she
so
was
was
8.
mine.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh my
cool.
gosh, yeah. Oh, and then speaking of which, she's from Pittsburgh too, so
No way.
connection.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Totally.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I mean, how did she get from Pittsburgh to Japan?
Okay, so that's a good question. This kind of clarifies the mystery. Because of my name, you think I'm totally Japanese, but I'm not. My mom is American. So she went to study in Chicago to become a nurse. And my dad, who's Japanese, he was studying at a seminary in Chicago area, and he needed to type a thesis, but he couldn't type. So he hired my mom to type
wow.
his thesis.
That's
And,
amazing.
yeah. And they fell in love, and he said, "You want to marry me? Come to Japan."
It's like, if you're still going to like me after having to write all this stuff about this random topic that I'm interested in, I think it's meant to be.
Totally.
Wow. So, but you were born in Japan then.
I was, yeah.
So your whole citizenship is Japanese, but your blood is half American, half Japanese.
Yeah, my
Is
citizen.
that right? Am I close?
I'm pretty close. I'm a dual citizen, so I was born U.S. citizen too.
Oh, yeah, of course. Wherever
yeah.
you're born, if your parent is American, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm a dual citizen, and I'm a mixed blood.
Okay, so you grew up in Tokyo, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Where in Tokyo did you grow up?
It's a city called Tachikawa, and it's near Air Force Base. If anybody's in like the U.S. Air Force, they would know Tachikawa pretty well. Yeah, it's kind of the outskirts of Tokyo, so it may not be, it's not super touristy, not the middle of the city.
Sure, yeah.
So around, and correct me if I'm wrong from what I've seen, around 10 years old is when you chose your instrument?
Mhm.
And what
That's
made
right.
you choose trombone?
Okay, well, I never chose it.
It chooses us.
That's right. It does choose us. I
It's
joined
like Harry
the
Potter
band.
in the Sorting Hat, you know?
Well, it really is. It really is, because I joined the band because I wanted to play the clarinet, because my best friend played the clarinet. So I was like, oh, why not play with her? But then I was too late to join, so there was nothing left. And my teacher said, hey, just go in the storage room and find whatever is available. And the only thing that was available was the trombone. So I never chose it.
You're like, what's this? It's like the leftover.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, I never heard of a trombone before. And I was like, what is this thing? And then as soon as I played it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I love this thing. So I did fall in love with it as soon as I played it.
And was there a certain point where you realized that you wanted to pursue it? Was it pretty soon, or did it kind of take a while?
It was actually pretty quick. I just loved it so much. And yeah, I think even as a grade school kid, I was practicing hours. And I knew by the time I was 6th grade, I knew I wanted to be a trombone player.
Wow, 6th grade. Wow.
Wow, that's really,
Yeah.
really, wow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's all I could think of. And I look at the diaries of when I was young, and everything I write is about the trombone. I'm in sixth grade, and it's like I practiced this piece, and this was really hard, but then I was able to do it. I'm so happy.
That's
Everything is
adorable.
about that.
That's awesome.
I know, it's so horrible.
And so I read at some point you won like a national competition when you were pretty young.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, interesting story. When I first started the trombone, I was really not that good. I told you, the trombone was the only leftover thing, right? And so there was nobody that taught me the trombone. So I used to play the trombone backwards. Like I was
Really?
totally, yeah, like moving the slide with the left hand.
No
You're like
way.
you're like the Japanese slide Hampton.
I know. But I had no idea it was wrong. I just thought, it was kind of an awkward instrument, and nobody taught me any positions. So I had no idea there were 7 positions. So I figured it out by playing on the piano. I would play a C, and then I tried to match the pitch on the trombone for a while. And then a few months in, after we started playing instruments, there was this Mary Had a Little Lamb test at school. And, everybody plays Mary Had a Little Lamb. And if you do a good job, you get a sticker. It turns out everybody passed except for me.
Oh, no.
I know.
No stickers for you.
No stickers for me. So that was like, okay, I'm the worst player in the whole band. And I love the trombone. And this has got to change, So I went to a music store and got a trombone book. And I found out my trombone was backwards.
Oh my god.
This doesn't match the pictures.
I know. And it's like, wait, there are like 7 positions? Like, duh.
So how long did it take until you could actually have a teacher?
I got a trombone teacher when I was 14. I had to beg my dad like crazy. He always said, you're never going to make the amount of money you invest in music, like you're never going to get the investment back. He said, no, you can't be a musician. But every day I was like, hey, can I take a lesson? I would love to have a teacher. I would love to become a musician. And I said that every day. I mean, I think the thing that convinced him was I went to a conservatory to go meet a teacher. And the teacher wasn't there that day, so I didn't get to meet the teacher. But when he heard that I was that interested, he was like, okay, fine, I will find you a teacher. So he got me a teacher. And this competition, actually, that you mentioned, the competition that I won, that was one of the requirements for him to be on my side to become a musician.
Wow, no pressure.
Yeah. He was like, well, if you can win a national competition, then you're good enough to be a trombone
That's all
player.
you have to do. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
So it sounds like you always had the love for it. Mm-hmm. But was winning this competition kind of like a jolt of confidence? Was that kind of the first time you're like, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this thing?
It was, I guess I started getting attention before that. Maybe when I was like in high school, like freshman or so, even in middle school, I guess I started getting attention. And instead of confidence, I had a really bad reaction to it. I kind of felt like I felt more pressure. I felt like everybody was looking at me like she may be the next star kind of a thing. So then I had a horrible reaction. Every time I performed, I would get a fever. And every time I performed, I would throw up. And I would also get like cold sores all over my lips.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So,
so that
this didn't come from
yeah.
nervousness? This came from...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It came from
it's
something
from
else?
nervousness. No,
It was nervousness.
Yep. I mean, I was totally healthy until the day of the performance. And I wake up and every time it's a guarantee. I have a fever, I would throw up, and then I have cold sores all over the lip, which, reduces the range to like an octave, So
Wait,
That
you
sounds
can
like
play
a
more-
lot
You
to
can
go
play
through.
more than an octave? Or... How do you do that?
Whoa. What kind of mouthpiece is that?
Yeah, oh, man.
That sounds like a lot of
Yeah.
that sounds like a lot of adversity to go through. I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine it was challenging. Like, is this even worth it to like have to go through this every time I perform?
Yeah, I know. That was, a lot of people told me it's like, you're not mentally strong enough to become a musician, like a performer. So why don't you do something else? I've heard a lot of that, but I couldn't think of anything else. And one thing that was really encouraging to me is Luciano Pavarotti. He was like huge deal back then, right? And then I heard that he used to throw up every time he performed too.
Wow.
And
Really?
I was like, wait, okay, so maybe there is hope, and maybe I'll figure this out someday.
Did you ever kind of get to the bottom of it? Was it kind of like a imposter syndrome kind of thing, or?
I did get to the bottom of it. For me to figure it out, I had to lose everything. I told you I really practiced a lot, even as a young player, and it's almost like I was practicing almost like obsessively. I mean, it was so much practice. One of the biggest challenges I've ever had was when I was at the Cleveland Institute of Music. I practiced so much that I couldn't even hold a note anymore,
Wow.
and it was like
Whoa.
even touching the bottom half of the face. If I touched it, I mean, it was so excruciating, and I could not even buzz. I couldn't do anything. I came to that point, and I went to a doctor that specializes in musicians, and he told me, I don't know if you're ever going to play again.
Man.
Yeah. So 2 months, I took 2 months off, and
Only 2 months. Wow, that's pretty quick. But
Yeah.
still, it probably seemed like a lot in that moment when you were practicing so much.
Yeah.
It probably seemed like
So
an
much.
eternity.
I know. I had to lock the trombone in a locker and then, put a key on it. So,
Oh,
so I
wow.
couldn't, so I couldn't get to it. Yeah, it did feel like a long time. He said, the doctor said, if you take more than 2 months off, then it starts becoming like a mental problem. Like you become scared of playing. So lock it up for 2 months, come back and see what you can do. You may not be able to play, or maybe you can figure out a new way to play. So I came back, I tried to play, I couldn't play. And I was
Whoa.
like, darn, like I think I'm done. But
Like it was
then-
the same kind of thing, like you like couldn't hold a note.
Yeah, I couldn't hold a note. Yeah.
What would happen?
but
What would happen
yeah.
when you tried to hold a note? Was it pain, or was it would wobble, or what would happen?
It would just, it was like pain and wobble.
Oof.
Yeah. But then I had an awesome teacher. So my teacher was Jim DeSano,
Mm-hmm.
who was the principal trombone in the Cleveland Orchestra. And he had a lot of chop problems himself. Like he had brass poisoning,
Wow.
which,
I went to school at Juilliard with someone who got brass poisoning.
sounds nasty.
Like blisters and like really. Oof. Yeah.
So nasty.
Yeah.
But
It was gross.
yeah. And it's like, hard to get through that. But, he overcame that. So he had a few ideas that was really, really helpful. He asked me, if you can't hold a note, can you free buzz? And I tried to free buzz. I could. I was like, wait, why can't I hold a note, but why can I free buzz? It's the airspeed.
Mm.
When the airspeed is like so fast, you don't even need chops. So then I tried to like keep the same airspeed on the mouthpiece as the free buzz, and then now I could buzz the mouthpiece. And then I tried to
Oh,
keep
wow.
the same airspeed on the trombone, and then I could play a note. And I was like, wow. So I just remember like the first time I was able to play a 1 octave B flat major scale, and I was like, wow, this is so awesome. And being able to play anything is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of realized that it's not about pressure or I have to sound good. It's like being able to play anything is a gift. In the process, I kind of figured out too, like, what is our mission? It's not look at me, people are counting on me. It's like, no. We're here to lift people's spirits up. We're here to serve. So I had a whole attitude change when I had that injury. So then that's how I got rid of all that fever and cold sore and throwing up.
It's amazing how the physical
Yeah.
manifestations of nervousness of stress. It's
I
like so many
know.
things can cause it, and you want to treat the symptoms, but it really
Yeah.
it's about finding that root cause. And
I
like you said, it
know.
was about going to the edge and seeing what it feels like to lose it, to realize what, it sounds like it helped you find what your priorities were.
Exactly. And so every note is a gift, and everything I play, even now, I remember that first B flat major scale. Every note I play is a gift, and nothing is a given. So it really changed the outlook of my playing.
It's amazing how it always
Yeah.
seems like 90% of whenever you're
Yeah.
just in a slump or just things aren't working, it
Yeah.
feels like 90% of the time it's an air problem. It's something to do with the air.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I guess, chop problem was not the only problem I've had. I've had other interesting chop problems that happened more recently. Let's see, I had brass allergy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that started like maybe 5 years ago. It took like 2 years to figure out like what exactly was going on.
Was it happening
it
on
was-
your where was it happening here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nick's pointing to his mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
That-
this is my chops. You cannot see them on a podcast. I'm pointing to them.
Yeah. Apparently, when the metal is wet, is when it really leaks. So it hasn't showed up on my hands ever. But, it was showing up on my lip, like inside of the lip would get like really fat. But then I couldn't figure out what was going on because, so what was causing it was my alto trombone mouthpiece. But it felt like it was showing up at random times. But
Well,
then
don't play the
when
alto trombone.
I
Duh.
know. But then when I looked at the schedule book, I figured out it's like every time I played the alto trombone, it showed up 4 weeks after that.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I had this, random, fat lip for like 2 years. And, I had to play Bolero and I had to play Daphnis and Chloe through that. And the airspeed, the free buzzing trombone exercise has got me through this. And nobody ever noticed I had the brass allergy.
That's
So-
amazing. I feel like that's a sign of being a professional is when it's not
Yeah.
about sounding amazing all the time. It's not about
Yeah.
feeling good all the time. It's about like you having a bad day, you going through something and still
Yeah.
showing up and getting your job done and no one even notices.
Exactly. Yep.
We've all sat there and had swollen chops. We've all had whatever happen. And
Yeah.
it's just at the end of the day you got a job to do and you just push through, right?
That's right. Oh, speaking of which, I have like a super dramatic story.
We love super dramatic stories.
Okay. So this is like what happened during process of getting injured too. So this injury did not happen overnight, but it was like maybe a year or two in the making. So while I was like starting to get sort of injured and, there were times that I had to take weeks off before, I really got injured. Okay, so this was my high school senior year. And, I went to a music high school. And then at the end of the music high school time, there was this honors recital, which, was kind of a big deal for me. There were going to be like 2,000 people that would come to the concert. And I guess I should have probably played what I knew already, but I decided I wanted to play a new song. So I thought, okay, I'm going to play Martin's Ballade. And, this recital is happening in like a month. So I'll learn it. But then the problem was I couldn't play at that time. I was already starting to get injured.
That would be a problem. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
especially with Martin.
I know. Yeah, high school kids can be so like, they don't think.
Oh, we can play anything in high school.
I know, right? There's no fear. But I thought I could play it by the concert. But the problem was I could not physically practice. So I played the piece on the piano, memorized all the notes, and then I would play along, like I would sing along, moving my hand, like slide positions, pretending like I'm playing. And then I would put a storyline and words to the song, to the Martin Ballade. So it sounds like I own it. And I even drew like a diagram of like the phrasing.
Wow.
I mapped it all out, and then I rehearsed it with a pianist while I was singing, and the pianist would play. And I rehearsed in my mind many, many times. I performed in my mind many times. I thought about how do I want to feel walking out to the stage, and how do I want to feel when I'm playing, and how do I want people to feel when they hear me. And I, ran through that many, many times. So then by the time the performance came, which it was the first time I've ever played the piece, and I played it from memory, but it didn't feel like it was the first time because I lived through it many times in my head. So that was kind of...
Wow. So it sounds like you did all the things that we always say we need to do more of. We get so bogged down of just the technique of operating the instrument. And you did all those wonderful things, that visualization and making the piece your own, making it internal, singing it, creating a story around it. I mean, that's like, have you applied that kind of philosophy to everything you work on now?
Yes. I mean, I was forced to learn it that way because I couldn't play. And the performance, that performance was one of the most memorable performances, even to this day. It's really, it was a really memorable performance. Yeah, I apply that to everything I do.
That's awesome. So
yeah,
since we're back there, I kind of wanted to trace how you got from there to the Cleveland Institute. Did you come all the way to America to audition, or were there auditions there? I mean, how'd you find out about the school?
Well, okay, so that's a funny story. I knew I wanted to come to the U.S. because, I'm American. So, and I thought Japan is getting a little kind of small, and I wanted to go to a bigger world. But where to was the question. So I went to this seminar ran by Yamaha, and one of the teachers there was Mark Gould.
Uh-oh.
Trouble.
Yeah.
Well, so Mark Gould, he was the principal trumpet player of the Metropolitan Opera. And I asked him, I was like, I would like to come to the U.S. to study trombone. What do you think? And he said he had an idea for me. And that was the end of the conversation. And then a few months later, I got a fax. Remember fax? Are you fax generation?
Yes.
Or
I remember those.
I remember them. It's
Those were like right before the beepers.
exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I got a fax from Jim DeSano, the principal trombone in the Cleveland Orchestra, saying that the Cleveland Orchestra is on tour in Japan, and they'll be in Tokyo. And Mark Gould told him, Mark Gould actually talked to Mike Sachs, who was the principal trumpet of the Cleveland Orchestra. And then Mike Sachs talked to Jim DeSano, and he said he would like to meet me. So, so I went to meet Jim DeSano, and Mike Sachs was there too. And the thing is, I thought it was a lesson, and I think they thought it was an audition. So I played for them, and I was thinking, gosh, this lesson is really weird. They're not saying much, and why are there two teachers here? But my English was weak enough back then. I had no idea what was going on. And I finished playing, and they said, we'll see you in September. And I'm like, okay. What?
Where?
I was like, what is this place? Like Cleveland? I mean, I've never heard of Cleveland. I thought it was a mistake of Greenland.
It's the Paris of the Midwest.
Greenland. That would be more interesting in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But then, I had no idea where this place was. But then I heard the orchestra's concert that night. It was Beethoven 6. And I was like, you know what? I don't care where this place is. This orchestra's awesome. And I'm going there.
You're like, I'll strap on my snowshoes and I'll get there,
Yeah, exactly.
Do I have to take a boat to get there?
So it's Mark Gould that set this up for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So then you finally come to Cleveland, and I mean, I imagine you had been visiting America a few times before.
Yeah, just like maybe twice or three times before that.
But I mean, you had been like speaking English from like very young, I imagine.
That's a funny story there too. So I understand until I was 3 years old, all I spoke was English. And
Oh, wow.
then once I started going to kindergarten, I told my mom I live in Japan and I'm gonna speak Japanese only. So then I dropped English completely. So
Wow.
yeah, but my mom, she did not give up on English, and she kept speaking to me in English all the time. So I could understand, but when I got to Cleveland, I felt like I knew what I wanted to sound like, but I couldn't sound the way I wanted to sound.
You mean when you spoke or when you played?
When I spoke, it was a lot like music. I had words. I knew what I wanted to sound like, but my mouth would not move that way.
So you go back, going back just a second, you said your mom never gave up. Would she say things to you in English and then you respond in Japanese?
That's right.
So she obviously, obviously she lived in Japan. She, at some point, she learned Japanese and...
Yeah, I mean, she can speak fluent Japanese, but she always prefers English. So my friends would come over to our house and be totally confused all the time. It's like, what's going on here? English, my mom's speaking English and I'm speaking Japanese, and everybody's understanding each other.
I grew up some in El Paso, Texas, and some of my best friends were from Mexico originally. And it was a similar situation where their parents, they totally understood English, and the whole house was English, Spanish, and their mother and father would speak in Spanish, and they would respond in English. And so I would hear the responses, but not knowing what the question was. So similar to your friends being like,
exactly,
what?
like,
I think I know what's going on, but not 100%.
I know. Yeah, so it took a lot of practice when I got here. I understood what people were saying, but it was a lot like practicing music. I would be like, ice cream, ice cream, ice cream, just like practice it over and over until I sounded the way I wanted to sound. It's just like music, though. If you know what you want to sound like, you're gonna get there. And I had what I wanted to sound like in English. I just had to practice the words so I can sound the way I wanted to sound. Yeah.
So you're in Cleveland now. So what was that experience like? What was coming to the state, not to the States, but to specifically Cleveland to study music? What was that whole experience like?
Oh man, I think I was like pretty much lost the whole time.
How so?
I don't know, just like new language, new culture. I don't remember much other than getting injured and recovering. I feel like I was lost the whole time. And maybe the last year, I think I finally became myself again. I think it's challenging when it's a whole different culture and a whole different language. It takes time to find yourself in a new environment or new language. But one thing that I really enjoyed was going to the Cleveland Orchestra concerts.
Sure.
I was.
Were you going all the time?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was an usher. I mean, I had no money, so I was like, okay, I'm going to be an usher. So then I went Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I was an usher on those days. And then whenever I had time between classes, I would go to the rehearsals to go check it out.
Wow. So you were hearing up, like in the same program, potentially you could hear it 4 different times.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. That's incredible. So you saw not only the Cleveland Orchestra every week, but you saw the evolution of a piece of music with the same orchestra. You could see how it would evolve and how it would change night to night, and maybe something wouldn't quite work out, and seeing how that resolved itself the next night.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I will not mention any names, but there has been some epic fails.
Hey, we're only human, right? We're only human.
Exactly. But then it's like, it's been really fascinating to listen to like an epic fail by some, principal brass players one day. And then the next day, how are they going to come back? And what kind of an attitude are they going to come back with? So, Gosh, yeah, I'm sorry I can't mention any names, but it was like,
Don't worry.
But it, yeah, it was amazing though. Like there was this one unbelievable flail one day, and then the next day he came back so strong, and I took a note of that. It's like if something happens, I'm gonna come back strong like that.
Yeah, that says more about someone, right? It's not about being perfect all the time. Like, how are you gonna react when adversity strikes, when the dress
Exactly.
rehearsal happens, or even the first concert, and it really doesn't go the way you want to go?
Yep. And that's one of the most memorable thing that I remember from the Cleveland Orchestra concerts, the epic fail. and how this person recovered from the epic fail, and it was like so darn strong the next day.
So was it the Albany Symphony that was next?
Mm-hmm.
How soon after school did you join them?
So it's kind of gray. I started Albany Symphony the 4th year of my Cleveland Institute time.
Wow, that's... I need to get out my map, but that's not very close to each other.
No,
Cleveland and Albany.
it's an 8-hour drive from Cleveland to Albany.
Oh.
But thankfully, I finished all the academics by the 4th year. The only thing I had left was take lessons. I didn't have to worry about the school at all the 4th year. I just lived in Cleveland, took lessons, and then I would commute to Albany. But that
man,
commute,
so you were able to make pretty much every concert then?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I don't think I missed anything. Yeah.
I used to sub with them a little bit.
Really?
I always remember that gigantic hall they have.
Oh my
palace.
gosh, the palace!
It's incredible.
Yeah,
The palace. It really is a palace.
Theater.
They've had a pretty epic
Yeah.
list of trombonists there because of its proximity to, I mean, you don't think of Cleveland when you think of the proximity, but certainly proximity to New York and Boston. It's
I know.
It's had a huge list of amazing trombone players.
Yeah, and not only trombone, but trumpet and horn. I mean, it's been a
Yeah,
really,
brass
really
and
strong
strings
brass.
and percussion. And the whole thing.
Yeah. So that was a wonderful job to have. I almost died a few times driving there, in the middle of the snow.
Oh gosh.
I mean,
so you're like Albany's not cold enough. How about Rochester? Let's find somewhere a little cooler.
That's right.
The
That's
Thunder
right.
Bay. When in your studies did you? Well, first of all, going back a touch. So when did you start taking auditions? So you obviously won Albany, but when did you go from there and win Rochester? And how did this progression happen?
I think I started taking auditions as soon as I recovered from the injury, which was maybe end of sophomore or beginning of junior year. I mean, I just had to take auditions because I had zero money. Oh yeah, one of the things that I remember is my mom sent me $900 for my junior year, and she said, "I'm sorry, this is all I have for you this year." I'm like, wait, this is tuition and living expense, right? She's like, "I'm sorry, this is it." I'm like, oh my gosh. and but I guess I knew it was coming too. So that's why I finished my studies. I made it really fast because I knew I needed to get a job. Yeah, I started about the junior year to start taking auditions. And then I was in Albany for 3 years. The thing about Rochester is the day before Rochester audition, I actually had another audition that I was really hoping to get, and it was for principal in Montreal. It was going pretty well until the finals, and then I was playing William Tell in the finals, and I just let go of the slide, and it flew across the stage, and it actually went all the way to the judges.
Oh my gosh! Well, it is a storm scene. I mean, you're just
storm. That's right. Everything is flying in this storm scene. Yeah.
What'd you do?
I mean, I just laughed. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. But it was totally frustrating. And then it was like 11 p.m. and I called my roommate. And I was like, man, this audition was really horrible. I'm like so mad at myself for letting go of the slide. And she was like, actually, when you were in Japan, there was an announcement for second trombone in the Rochester Philharmonic. And I thought you may want to take this audition. So I sent your resume in with a check, and it's tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she was like, are you going? And I'm like, okay, well, let's see how long it takes to drive from Montreal to Rochester. And it was like 5 or 6 hours. It was 11 p.m. I'm like, I can do it. I just need a few naps. So I, took, I just took naps.
She didn't think about telling you this like a little bit sooner, besides one day before.
I guess not, because I was like, I'm so, in my mind, I was so going to win that Montreal audition. So I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm totally going to take this audition. So I drove all night. But the thing is, I had no idea what was on the list. And this was second trombone, so it's like slightly different from the first trombone. So I got there around 8 a.m., closed my eyes for a few minutes. And then when I got to the audition, I looked at the list. And there were a couple of pieces that I never played before. And one of them was Scheherazade. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to play this. So I found a guy that looked like a real nice guy. And I was like, what is your interpretation on this piece? And he was like, and then he was like, this is how I like to play it. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a really good interpretation. Note taken. So that's
thank
how
you very much.
Yep, thank you. You're a great guy. So, there were some pieces that I played it for the first time at the audition, but I guess it's just like pure adrenaline. And, I ended up getting that job. And yeah,
And how long were you there?
I was only there for a little over a year. It was a very short time, but a wonderful time. Well, one of the most wonderful things was I met my future husband there. He was the associate principal horn player.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I read that, and I was just imagining, because now I don't want to kind of ruin the surprise, but he's in the Milwaukee Symphony with you now. So did you guys both join the orchestra around the same time, or was there?
It was separate times. So in Rochester, we had Mark Kellogg playing principal and Dave Ritchie playing bass trombone and Jeff Anderson on tuba. And Jeff Anderson and I, and then my husband, Dietrich, we were just like, the trio that hung out all the time together. And Jeff Anderson and I would be like, preparing for audition. Actually, his audition for San Francisco and my audition for Milwaukee was within days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then we would just like play for each other. And it's like, yeah, you're going to win this. And it's like, yeah, you're going to win this. And it's like, sure enough, we both won it. And I just started dating Dietrich, my future husband, like a week before the Milwaukee audition. And he was like, why don't you just take it, because we don't know what's going to go on in the future. So
you win the audition, and you're like, okay, bye.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so sorry. So then, I went down to Milwaukee, and 2 years later, he's like, I think I had enough of this. I'm just gonna quit Rochester, and I'm gonna come to Milwaukee to get married.
Wow!
Oh my gosh, what an awesome guy. Yeah, so then he came to Milwaukee, and then he freelanced in the Milwaukee and Chicago area for about 3 years. And, he was playing in all the regional orchestras. And then there was an audition for the Milwaukee Symphony. And what do you know? He got in. And it's like, wow. I mean, how often does that happen?
How'd that feel when your husband, after quitting his job in Rochester and moved across the country, or halfway across the country, when he won that job? How did that feel for both of you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we just couldn't believe it. I mean, we all know how difficult it is to win a job. I mean, even for a great player, I just couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. And, as soon as he won it, I'm like, you know what? We're going to stay here forever. This is our second job together. It's not going to happen again. Right. So, yeah, I still can't believe it.
Who was more nervous for that audition, you or him?
Honestly, I think we were kind of like, whatever, it's not gonna happen, and we just had like, a brand new baby, and we're like, maybe, yeah, for childcare's sake, maybe it's better if we're not in the same orchestra, and it's not gonna happen anyway. So we were like, totally like, whatever, But my gosh, yeah, were we ever so happy?
I bet.
Oh my gosh,
that's amazing because you hear so many stories about it's so hard to be a couple of musicians that are auditioning because you have to follow where the work is and you never know if you'll end up in the same place, and you hear so many relationships where it's just a big challenge or it just doesn't work, and man, you have that's just such a wonderful story to hear of it working out like that.
I know, it's like we're so thankful. I mean, I can't even tell you.
I mean, you hear all the time of people playing, couples playing in the same orchestra, but they usually meet after they get in the orchestra.
Exactly.
But to have you both win auditions after being married in the same orchestra, that's one in a million or something like that.
I know. I can't believe it. It's like winning a lottery, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how long have you been playing in Milwaukee now?
I've been here for 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've seen the section change over time, I imagine.
Oh,
the whole
totally.
section, right?
Yeah. When I first got into Milwaukee, Gary Greenhall, he was playing second trombone. Now that was really fun because, he would bring in a different trombone into work every day. He's like, look at my new creation. So that was really fun. And he was always thinking about like, oh, what can I do next to the horns? So, that was really fun.
And you still play one of his horns?
I do. He just makes a really beautiful, just wonderful horns. And another thing that was really fun about him was he studied with Emery Remington, and my teacher, Jim DeSano, he studied with Remington too. So,
wow.
Yeah. So we were really similar in the way we played. And a lot of times we would play something in the orchestra and we would just look at each other and it was like, wow, that's what I have been imagining the whole time. It was like we were like twins in a way. I mean, he was 6'7". And
oh my gosh.
He's that tall?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that makes for some good photos.
Oh my gosh. Literally, you can't even see me in the orchestra photos. I mean,
yeah. I mean, Sebastian and I are both really tall, but that's a good 4 inches on either one of us.
Yeah, he's very tall. I mean, I didn't even reach his shoulders. But we were still like twins, and we played like twins, even though we looked like nothing like each other. So that was Gary Greenhall was there, and then Richard Kimball, he was playing bass trombone, and then Al Baer was on the tuba. So yeah, complete shift. Now we have Kirk Ferguson playing second trombone, and then
and we both
John.
know Kirk. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you guys went to
school with
Juilliard,
Kirk.
right? Oh my God.
I went to Juilliard with him. Yeah.
Oh, he's a great guy. Yeah. It's such a nice section to play with. And, I don't take it for granted. A section that can work together and appreciate each other is pretty special. So
that's a rare thing, right?
It doesn't happen everywhere, and it's, great colleagues I have. Yeah. Did I say John Tavenet plays the bass trombone already?
You just did?
Yeah, you just did.
Good. So then we have a super young tuba player joining us whenever the season starts. His name is Robert Black, and he just started college. But,
oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. Amazing.
How old?
Amazing. Let's see. He was a freshman last year.
Oh my
gosh.
Yeah. I mean, and then even more amazing, this was our second audition for the tuba. We had another audition the first time, and he was the last one standing, and he was a high school senior at that time.
You're kidding me. You're
totally.
kidding me.
Is he from the area?
He's from Chicago. Yeah.
Wow. He must be something if he's doing that at 18, 19 years old. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, really amazing. So, and then the progress from the first audition to the second audition, it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, he was great the first time, but now it's like, wow, he's so good. So
Where was he in school?
somewhere in college, he went to Rice.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So do you see a difference when you're working with,
Yeah.
do you approach it differently? I guess it would be a better way to ask it. When you have a really young player in your section that is very talented, but may not have the experience as someone older might have.
Yeah. Well, in Robert's case, I see that he is very mature for his age. So, I think I'll just do what I do and he will learn. He's a really fast learner and I have very high hopes for him. He is very mature for his age. So, I'm really looking forward to playing with him whenever the season starts.
Yeah. So speaking of which, how's Milwaukee Symphony coping right now? How's everything?
Oh man. Yeah. Well, we were building a new hall. We had this old movie theater that was built in 1930s and we are renovating it and we were going to move in September. And we were, really worried that because of the virus business that the building would not be ready. And it looks like the building is going to be ready. It's like ahead of the schedule. And
that never happens.
Yeah, right? I mean, yeah, because like nothing else is happening. It's like the building is happening. And now we're worried that the building will be ready, but we're not going to be ready. So I don't know, you just got to wait till it's safe for everyone. And I just can't wait to play with my wonderful colleagues. So got to hang in there.
Yeah. Sebastian, should I tell her my Kirk Ferguson catch-up story?
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
absolutely.
Tell me.
So this is one of my favorite stories. Kirk might not like us for telling it.
or Joe, maybe. We'll see. So Kirk would walk around with his backpack on at school, and I noticed where the water bottle holder is on the side, the kind of like a little mesh sack.
Yeah.
He had a bottle of ketchup in there. And I pulled him aside. I said, "Why do you have a bottle of ketchup in your like hanging out in the water bottle holder of your backpack?" And he said, "Well, last week in my lesson, Joe said something. Joe said I couldn't play this Arbenz exercise, so I started carrying around this bottle of ketchup so it would be easier for him to eat his words." And it was like a motivation tool, basically. Get in the practice room and Kirk and practice. That's kind of what he was thinking, is like when he saw that, his motivation was to prove to Joe, I can do this.
Oh,
and so
my
that was possibly the most Kirk Ferguson moment of my 2 years with him. It was awesome.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, hey, whatever works, right?
Yeah. I mean, it always works for Kirk. He's a great player and a great guy. So.
Yeah. What a great guy. I'm so lucky to be sitting next to somebody, that nice and awesome.
I'd be curious to hear about, from my reading, you seem to be a bit of a rock star back in Japan. And, we were talking to Marshall Jilks in our last interview about how their quartet went over there, the Slide Monsters went over to Japan, and it was sold out for a trombone quartet concert, and he was blown away by just the energy. Do you feel you've noticed going back any sort of trends as far as a growth of appreciation for brass playing, for trombone playing?
Well, I do feel like the level is going up. There's like a lot more like better players, and brass band is such a big deal in Japan. It all starts at the band, and I think the level is getting higher, and there's a lot of people that's really interested in going to concerts and listening to brass players. Yeah, you're right. Like I did a recital last year, and I was kind of worried because it was like 1,000 seats. And I'm like, who's going to come to this? I can't fill up this hall. but hey, 1,000 people came. So I think, like people are really hungry for brass music there.
That's really cool. And I mean, you hear these recordings of these young wind ensembles in Japan that are just unbelievable. Like these kids are like 11 and they're playing these incredibly hard pieces perfectly. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, there's that one recording that went viral of that girls' high school or maybe middle school. I mean, they were really young playing. I think it's the composer's name is Sphere. And they're playing this, and it's way harder than anything I ever played in high school. That is, not even close. And I went to a good high school, had a good band program. There's obviously something in the water.
Well, they do practice really hard though. Like when I was in grade school, even as a grade school student, we would show up before the classes start. So the band kids would go to school around 7:00, and then we would have an hour and a half practice in the morning, and then after school we will stay for like another 2 hours. At first we used music, but by the time the concert came, we didn't use music anymore. You
played memorized.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole band, we all played it from memory. So yeah, it was pretty awesome.
One of the interesting thing I've seen in Japan, and I don't think I've seen it anywhere else, is players who have shorter arms will use string.
Yeah.
And they get so good at it. They'll just throw the slide out to seventh position.
I know.
And then it's like almost like a yo-yo. They do like a little pull on the string and the slide comes back. And they get good enough where it's completely seamless. Like it's part of your arm.
Totally.
I mean, that is a extended technique.
You could have used that for William Tell in that audition.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah. What you should have had Gary built is like a trumpet player has on their third valve slide, the little stopper.
Yeah.
Then you could just throw it all the way out to seventh for those runs in William Tell.
Darn. Oh man. But I did use those little ribbons when I was younger. My teacher taught me about it, and he gave me a little pink ribbon, and I practiced that, the slide technique with the ribbon on the slide. But then I got tall enough, so I didn't need it.
So I want to hear more about this method book that you're making.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess the whole concept behind it was I just wanted something that really encouraged musical playing. So I kind of wanted to think beyond trombone. And it also has like everything. So it has in order to play musically without limitation, you need all the techniques. So it starts with we have like long tones, and then there's like stuff like soft playing or like loud playing. And then, of course, like the lip slurs and trills and stuff. Breath attack. Let's see, what else did I put in there? High notes, low notes, alternate positions, glissando. It's a lot, so I can't remember.
Very comprehensive.
Yeah. I think it's about 250 pages.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Like
the new Arbin book.
It kind of may be, because I have this idea book and I was like, gosh, this thing is getting really heavy. So I weighed it and it was like 4 pounds. Yeah. So, but something unusual is I put the alto trombone section in it because I got kind of sick and tired of not having an alto trombone method. So there's a chapter in alto trombone, and kind of starts with easier etudes, and then it goes into more complicated etudes. And it has, and it covers all the clefs too, alto clef and, tenor clef, and then mixed clef. And then it goes into character studies, all the pieces have a theme and, what we want to accomplish with that etude. So I think the etude section, I wrote maybe, 60 etudes or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's Arbin's and Blazevich now.
Yeah. Arbin's Blazevich, and then you can add some, a French characteristics etudes. I don't know. I just wanted something that had everything in one place. And if you go through that book, then not only that you have the technical things, but you also, learn how to become really musical. It really challenges you musically and expression wise too. Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
That's the whole point, right? Like we often get so lost in just focusing on the technique that kind of missing the forest for the trees, right?
Exactly. So it's like let's bring back the focus to what's important, and to get there, we need the technique. But our ultimate goal is to speak through our music.
Now, did you come up with the idea of compiling the excerpt book that you did, or what? Did someone approach you, or how did that come to fruition?
That actually came from before I did it, there was a book by Wesley Jacobs. He was the tuba player in the Detroit Symphony, and he owns the Encore Music Publishing.
Okay.
And then one day I just got a call from him. He's like, "Hey, do you want to do an excerpt book?" I'm like, duh.
I don't know if everyone would have the same answer as you.
I don't think I would.
Really? Like, I don't know. I just love excerpts. Like, I think it's so fun to learn excerpts and then to polish it until it's perfect. It makes me
I don't
feel
have
like
that feeling.
You don't?
No.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Nick's kind of like a throw it against the wall and see if it sticks kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more like, okay, get the diamond from the rough, and then I polish it and see how shiny it gets, and I was like, duh, yeah, I love it. So then I signed up right away.
Yeah, I feel like we teach a lot of lessons, and I feel like I see your book on the stand like every lesson. It's such a wonderful book, and it's so comprehensive, and it's organized so well, and it gives a lot of really good things to think about and musical things to think about before every excerpt. Yeah, we see it's so popular. We're seeing so many young people loving it.
Yay. Oh, thank you. Well, I guess I really wanted to do it because I was kind of getting sick of say like Berg 3 pieces, and students have to learn it. But then where do you get the music legally without going to the black market? And as a teacher, do you send the students to a black market to get the music? It was always a dilemma. So
I'm imagining like some secret black market where like, yeah, I'll take Bolero and Berg 3 pieces.
I got some Berg, I got some Prokofiev, I got some Shostakovich.
Leave your suitcase right there.
Exactly.
You gotta go behind the curtain.
So will you ever release some sort of combination book with Doug Yo's 100 for bass trombone? And I think that'd be cool to have in one book, or to have a section round version. Yeah. That would be cool too.
Ooh.
And since you're so interested in it, you should do it, because I don't think anyone else wants to.
No one would do it as
round. Well. Oh my gosh! Well, you're giving me dangerous ideas, and if I tell it to Doug Yo, he's gonna run with it too.
Well, he was the first one in this game so long ago when the internet was still in its infancy. He was putting stuff up on his website with like simple things like having the creation excerpt, or Beethoven 9 is a better example actually, with the words and things like that. And it was just like, oh, there's words, duh. And so obviously your book and Doug's book both do that, have interesting ideas or simple things that a student who's first working on things might not think of.
Gosh,
read it.
Yeah, and Doug is such a smart person. He's like, he could be the smartest trombone player out there. Such a scholar.
It's not a really high bar.
No.
Yeah, that's not really saying much.
You're darn right. Well, we can at least say we're the happiest bunch.
Yeah.
I can argue there. I'm not
That's right.
There.
That's right. We may not be smart, but we're happy.
Yeah, well, ignorance is bliss, isn't that what they say?
I think it's like there's a lot of reasons, but there's something about having this giant stress reliever in your hands at all times where there's something about playing just something full volume at the end of something that is so therapeutic that you can't be stressed out after doing that.
I know that. I think you're darn right, and that's what I miss right now so much. To not go to the orchestra, that's my stress relief, and I just love playing big.
Well, I mean, yeah, we're gonna be back there soon enough. And did you see the cartoon recently? Jeff Kernow's cartoon, and it was a guy at the dinner table, and he says, I miss making music with my colleagues at the orchestra, and his wife says, and I miss hearing you complain. I miss hearing you complain about it.
Oh,
It was like too accurate.
Funny.
Yeah, it's like hit right on the nose.
That's funny.
No, but we all miss it. We really miss it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your playing, I've really enjoyed everything that I've heard online of you playing. Just fantastic playing, really.
Oh,
really
gosh,
enjoyed
thank
it.
you.
And I wanted to mention your CDs. So from what I found, is there three, like Amazing Grace, Gloria, Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Is that right? Am I missing one?
Nope. I think that's it. There's like some like random live recording, but that one is like kind of like combined with other people too. So yeah, those are the 3 albums.
Very cool. Is there a place to get them? Because I looked on Amazon. Some of them, I don't know if you saw. It's kind of funny. Like some, I think you have to order from Japan. So some are listed at like $150.
Oh my god!
Like wow, this is a good CD.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, that's the going rate. That's a set rate.
Yeah, right.
Autograph copy.
Yeah.
I think Amazing Grace and Gloria is like those 2. I think are pretty easy to get in the States. I think Albany Records may have it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Mona Lisa. That's the one that's really hard to get your hands on. That never released in the US, and so that's only in Japan. And I have a few, but I'm like running low too, so I guess I just gotta pick it up when I go to Japan and then bring it back, and
Yeah.
You're gonna get stuck. There's gonna be a new line on the custom sheet. Do you have any live fish, animals, or trombone CDs?
It's in the same category, fish and trombone CDs.
Yeah, you have to go into a separate line.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And I have to say, I was telling my friends, by the way, the photography on the covers is fantastic.
Yeah, that guy was really good. Yeah, he was like a photographer for Vogue or something. So it's like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. Yeah. so that was fun.
It's not always easy making a trombone look cool on an album cover, but the right photographers can do it.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen me hold a trombone?
No.
I was talking to Sebastian. I know you haven't seen it. Come on, Sebastian.
Megumi, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Megumi.
Really, really a pleasure to get to meet you and get to talk to you, because we both have never gotten to meet you before, and this was great, and we hope to be able to play together sometime in real life soon.
Oh,
Yeah.
Totally. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you both too.
You too, Megumi. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I thought a really great interview with Megumi, and it was really nice to get to meet her. I mean, obviously meet her with air quotes because it was the internet, but yeah, what a positive energy. I really enjoyed talking with her.
Yeah, really positive energy. It was really, it's one of those things where you could see sitting in a section next to someone like that could be really nice. Someone that's really talented, someone that's really positive all the time, easy to communicate with.
And like she said, talking about her own section in Milwaukee, that she feels lucky to have colleagues that are easy to play with, easy to get along with. And she also acknowledges that is a blessing and isn't always the case.
Right. And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't think about, and you can't control it to a certain extent. Winning a job is very difficult, but just thinking that all I have to do is win a job and my life is set and I'm going to be happy the rest of my life. I mean, that's not everything. It's like you have to navigate social dynamics kind of almost more than any other profession. You're sitting next to the same person day in, day out for the rest of your career, possibly. And you have to be able to communicate and be vulnerable and do amazing things together. And sometimes you could be totally different people.
Yeah, totally. I've talked a lot about this with Denson Paul Pollard, our first guest, because we hang out a lot in DPP.
Yeah, you know me.
The choice for me. I've talked a lot about this with Paul. It was something passed on to me from our previous tuba player in the ballet, Steve Johns, who amazing guy. I think I've talked about him before already on this podcast. Great musician, great attitude, did everything 4 times over in New York. And he said for him, it eventually became about not who do I want to play with, because in somewhere like New York, it's just crawling with such great players. That's a given that you're going to have someone who can operate the instrument at a competent and professional level. It's who do I want to count rest next to, as a person. So when I started adapting that mentality, it really is a thing. It's who do I want to be with? Who do I want to be colleagues with? Who do I want to sit next to as a person? Yeah, so I think that it's nice when it's the whole package, like obviously they have going on in Milwaukee.
Yeah, obviously. And I think when you have a choice to choose your colleagues, if you're forming a chamber group, if you're, starting a trombone retreat, you want to work with, it's not just, you shouldn't evaluate who you choose just based on, who is the best possible musician to do this job. I think it's so undervalued working with someone. I'd rather work with someone that I know I can talk to, I know I can trust, I know I can be honest with, I know it cares, than someone that just happens to be really good. And I tell my students all the time, there's a lot of relationships in your life that you can choose, your friends, for example, but the ones that you can't often are, relationships with your family and coworkers to some extent. And those tend to be the ones that have the biggest clashes in your life. So those are the ones that you have to learn how to navigate. If a friend annoys you or bothers you, you can just not talk to them again. But with coworkers, sometimes you don't have a choice. So you have to learn how to talk to people, learn how to disagree, learn how to communicate in a positive way. And sometimes that can be really hard.
Absolutely. As a teacher, I've run across situations with students and they have problems with a classmate saying, "Oh, they did this, they did that, blah blah blah." And in a lot of the cases, they were valid complaints, and I'm not trying to take away from the validity of their problems, but I always try to twist it around, saying, "Okay, yeah, I see that's a real problem. So what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to come and complain to me and not talk to this person about it?" And I'll try to put them in a situation where they learn how to work through a problem, because that's a real world skill. No matter what you end up doing with the trombone, whether you're a professional musician playing in an orchestra or band or whatever, or you go and work in a 9 to 5 in a cubicle, you're going to have to deal with people no matter what you do in this life. So learning how to navigate problems with coworkers is super, super important.
So that being said, how do we do it? I'd like to believe that I can get along with anyone. That's kind of something I like to believe about myself, but it's definitely not true. There's always going to be someone that doesn't like you for whatever reason. It's usually their own issues that they may be dealing with. But that being said, I think the only tool we have, or at least the most effective tool we have, is empathy. As much as you can try to understand the other person, understand where they're coming from, putting yourself in their shoes as much as possible, showing that you're interested in their lives as much as possible, even if they're pissing you off on a daily basis. It's being the bigger person and trying to empathize is a tool that we as humans have to help navigate this crazy world.
What helped me so much in this arena, because I'm like you, I like to believe I can get along with everyone, and there's been some cases in my professional career where I've had some issues. And the biggest thing that helped me was reading Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's one of those things I've considered over the years, because I've recommended it so many times, just buying a stack of them from a bookstore and keeping them and just saying, hold on, let me give you a copy of this. Because, I've recommended it probably 50 times to different people complaining about this exact issue. Oh, I have this problem, blah, 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 whatever it may be. And it's like, well, have you tried this solution? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And these are all laid out in a very concise manner by Dale Carnegie. I mean, look, there's a reason this is still a best-selling book. Almost, I think it was written 100 years ago. So there's a reason this is stood the test of time is because it's really valuable information. And a lot of it circles around empathy. The best leaders, the best negotiators, the best colleagues are all people who are searching for a solution, not trying to further their own agenda necessarily. They're trying to come to a common ground from a place of honesty that, hey, I want to resolve this with you. How can we do that?
That reminds me of this other book I read. I believe it's called Verbal Judo, and I really apologize if I got the name wrong. But basically, they sell it as this book that is basically how to debate and how to win arguments. That's what people are thinking they're reading. But really, it all comes down to it's basically this police negotiator that had to like talk people out of doing crazy things when they're schizophrenic and de-escalating things. And it's all about empathy. It's not about trying to win the argument. We're such in a polarized society now that it's like one winner, one loser. And that's why we don't really communicate well as a society. And it's like, no, it's about understanding the other person and being able to compromise. I was listening to this podcast and this anthropologist being interviewed with kind of a new theory in basically studying how we evolve. And so long, we always talk about survival of the fittest and being the strongest and being the best. And you have to be the best at everything and people will follow you and blah, blah, blah. But really, science has shown that it's about survival. And this was her term, survival of the friendliest. That by being someone that helps other people and brings people up, you actually can achieve more in society and do more of what you want to do. And it's not about pushing people down along the way.
Yeah. Just going down that road a little bit further. It looks like it is called Verbal Judo, by the way, from what I looked
Yes.
up.
All right.
The
Internet search.
Verbal Judo, the gentle art of persuasion is what I see. And I'm trying to, I can't see who it's written by. Oh, it's written by George Thompson, PhD, and Jerry B. Jenkins, which is an awesome name.
Thank you, Nick. This is why we're friends.
So the little Google machine told me all that. But one more thing that about Dale Carnegie that I've used so many times with colleagues, with students, with just person-to-person interactions on the New York subway, these sort of things, is how to de-escalate a situation. And the number one thing is when someone comes in so mad about something, oh, this, that, and the other, and they said this, and then they did that. And when you're in a place that you need to calm this person down and get back to work, one of the most effective things is simply asking, okay, how would you like to see this different? What about the situation would you like to be different? And most times people can't answer that. They just are complaining. And when they realize that they don't have an answer to that question, it usually stops them dead in their tracks. And this isn't to try to shut them up. It actually is, everyone would notice that you're trying to be constructive and you're trying to help. And if they do have a genuine complaint and a genuine thing that they want to change, then you can go forward from there. But usually most people are just kind of complaining.
With so much going on in the world right now and so many people feeling a lot of emotions, coming strongly at people is never really going to get them to listen to you.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I wanted to move on to another topic that we talked about actually after we spoke with Megumi. And that is, she has these books out. She says she's coming out with a new one, and she has the excerpt book that so many students use. And it brought up a topic for Sebastian and I that we were talking about, which is in the digital age, it's so easy to get everything just shared to you for free. You can just reach out online and say, hey, does anyone have a PDF of the Bozza Quartet or something, whatever it may be? And it's like, of course people do. And while it's nice to have it on PDF and all that, and I was talking about how nice it is to have things on PDF. That's how this conversation came. But you got to buy the music, especially if you're going to perform it. You got to buy the music because put yourself in the shoes of like Megumi here. She put all this time into this excerpt book in this upcoming, did she say it's an etude book specifically, or it's more exercise?
It's everything. Yeah.
Think of all the time she put into it. Your 20, 30, 40 bucks that are going to go to her. I mean, come on. That's more than fair. What she's asking for to compensate her for her hard work in compiling all this stuff for you so that you don't have to go compile it, right?
Yeah, and even if you get your hands on it somehow, if someone sends a PDF, buy the book. Send the money in for the hard copy. It's just, we think sometimes musicians don't get a lot of opportunities. Think about composers and people that put the amount of time in and how easy it is for their work to be stolen nowadays and how often we use it. So any chance you can to support composers, especially living composers, please do it.
I mean, I have almost everything that I play on PDF, either scanned by myself or sometimes you can buy a version of it and download the PDF in addition to having the hard copy. But I have 3 file cabinets full of just books and sheet music and all that stuff. So, for anyone listening out there that sees me play off my iPad all the time, I do own hard copies of everything I play.
Come at me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a reminder, maybe I'm more sensitive to because my wife's a composer too, and people have ripped off her music all the time. It just, we should buy this music or else people will stop writing it. That's
a good way to look at it.
That's the long and short of it. So yeah, buy music.
Or it's just going to be all Hal Leonard.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone. I could just say briefly, I really liked her kind of overall thesis on the approach to creating this book, making it musically based. The same reason I really love the Brad Edwards lip slur melodies. It's doing fundamental things that are really important to do, but seeing the big picture and making them musical. I think it's so easy to have that disconnect where your routine never really applies to what you're doing because you make it so unmusical and so logical, and you're not in that expressive side of your brain that's connecting. So when you get on stage, all of a sudden you feel like you haven't done any work. Doing things in a musical way often, that's my whole philosophy is, every warm up, every single thing you do, make it beautiful, pretend you're on stage, make it vocal, make it expressive, make it feel like, like Marshall was saying, subconscious, like an extension of your subconscious and what you're doing. That saves so much time because, when we're on that, we have the 2 sides of our brain. And to put it very simply, when we're on that rational side of the brain, which we like to live in because we feel like we're more in control, that side is way less sophisticated. That side can only, focus on, they say, around 7 things at once. The emotional side of the brain, the one that when Michael Jordan goes into the zone and he's just like not thinking and everything's going in, that's the supercomputer. That's when we let go. And it's hard to recreate it all the time, but you get there by thinking expressively, thinking musically, letting go, not thinking about yourself, thinking about the audience, thinking about what you're doing. I could probably talk about this forever, but
I have one anecdote to anecdote. Oh my God.
Story. He has a story.
I have a story. Sorry.
Anecdote.
Anecdote. There we go. I had a student come to me once and said, "Nick, do you have any books on phrasing?" And I was like, "I mean, do you mean like thesis or like?" He's like, "He's no etude books," and I was like, "I don't understand the question." and I was like, because I was thinking like he wanted to read about like phrasing and the how to create a phrase. I don't know, and he was like, "No, like an etude book, like Bordoni, but for phrasing." And I was just like, "All your books are phrasing books." I don't know what else to tell you. And he was so confused by that. He was just like, he's like, "What do you mean all my books are?" I said, "Well, what's to say you can't phrase a scale pattern in an Arbenz book? I mean, come on. It doesn't have to be robotic." And to be honest, this is why so many other musicians think of us as less than musicians, because we just sit back there and we just slam notes against the wall as loud as we can. And while that's fun for a short amount of time, it's ultimately unfulfilling because you're not contributing anything to an ensemble when you bury the entire ensemble all the time. It's not a musical approach to the instrument. So let's be musical, folks.
And this is coming from a guy who can play as loud as any human being I've ever been around. And and I mean that as a compliment, and he definitely took it as one. But there's phrasing in fortissimo. Just because something's loud, there's so many players that are just like on and off. Once it gets loud, it means, oh, you just play every single note as loud as possible. But no, you can phrase things that are loud and make things, appealing. Again, the online trombone retreat is happening July 6th through 12th. Go to tromboneretreat.com to register. It will be free. It'll be a lot of fun, and we're really looking forward to it. So check it out. We really appreciate all of the support we continue to get and the feedback. We really love hearing from you guys. So feel free to contact us at tromboneretreat.com, tromboneretreat@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can follow me at js.vera on Instagram, at Sebastian Vera on Twitter, and you can follow Nick at basstrombone444 on Instagram. If you feel like you enjoyed this podcast, we really appreciate your support. If you have the time on Apple Podcasts to give us a rating and review, it really helps us out a lot. We'd really appreciate it. Feel free to submit a question. We're happy to talk about it after the interview.
Yes,
Thank you for listening, and look forward to more trombone talk.
Thank you.
And like always,
Retreat yourself.
that was said with authority. I like it. Retreat yourself.